Hey, I got some notes here because I was drinking throughout all these fights. But hey, UFC 218 review. And goddamn, was it good? 2 contenders for Fight of the Year. Definitely a contender for Knockout of the Year. And a great title fight to close out the show. UFC 218, even better than UFC 217. Hey, the UFC's back on fire, making fucking fire pay-per-view cards. I'm only going to cover 2 of the prelims, and I normally only cover 1 of the prelims, but 2 of them were just that good. So let's start with Cowboy Oliveira, the Brazilian welterweight, versus Yancy Medeiros. Holy shit, probably Fight of the Year. Holy fucking shit. A crazy back and forth, near finishes everywhere. Both guys probably going to the hospital. Cowboy Oliveira very nearly won this fight, and I am a gigantic Cowboy Oliveira fan. I fucking love this guy. This dude is a fighter. Just, oh my god, this dude feels no pain, is joyous in battle. He feels no fear. He got his nose broken probably on the first punch that Yancy Medeiros threw his way and just kept coming forward. And had rocked Yancy Medeiros twice by the end of the first round. The second round, Cowboy, broken nose and all, his face a pancake, and he had like a fucking bandana of blood, like a fucking bandit, coming at Yancy Medeiros, just berserking him. Berserking him, and turned Yancy Medeiros' face into just purple Play-Doh. Just pounded his fucking ass up huge. Just wham! The guy has a right cross from hell. Cowboy Oliveira, such a great striker. More fun to watch than Joe Lozon, Nate Diaz, fucking Clay Guida. Nah, there's nobody more fun to watch than Cowboy Oliveira. But Yancy Medeiros has a real chin. And, you know, maybe if Oliveira's nose wasn't broken really early in the fight, I really think Oliveira would have won. But the thing is, Oliveira just started to fade. Maybe as much as from blood loss as probably the fact that despite he was smiling and having fun and putting on the pressure the entire fight, Oliveira was clearly in a tremendous amount of pain. His nose was shattered. He was fucked up. But Yancy Medeiros eventually just outlasted him and finished him late in the third with a barrage of strikes against the cage. Oliveira, much sort of like the Rory McDonald effort against Robbie Lawler, just sort of couldn't take anymore. His body just shut down on him, and he just couldn't keep coming. But, oh man, this was Fight of the Year on cable, baby. We're not even to the pay-per-view yet. The featured prelim, another Brazilian badass, Charles Oliveira, fighting the Irish Dragon Paul Felder. Oliveira is probably one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the UFC. This dude has submissions for days. He's like a smaller El Cucuy, man. He's just really good. Really long arms, really high-level jiu-jitsu, and pretty good striking too. Paul Felder, just a classic bruiser with a new talent for ground and fucking pound. And that was the deciding factor in this match. For like half of the first round, Charles Oliveira had a Darce choke on Paul Felder, and he just apparently couldn't quite squeeze enough to choke him out. And believe me, it was really fucking close. I honestly thought Felder was going to fade out and just go to sleep, and he just didn't. The fact of the matter is, Paul Felder's probably a natural welterweight who cuts quite a bit to 155, and Oliveira is an upjumped featherweight. So there was a lot of size difference. And after Oliveira burned his arms out trying to submit Felder, yeah, dude. Felder was still alive, and Oliveira was too tired. And Paul Felder, his ground and pound elbows, they're not slicing, they're not dicing, they're more like sledgehammers. They're more like a fucking battle axe. And he cleaved Oliveira's face in half to the point where Oliveira tapped due to strikes. The problem was there was a lot of bad officiating tonight. And surprisingly, to my surprise, the tattooed midget of doom with no neck, Keith Peterson, was probably the best referee of the night when I normally am on Twitter calling for Keith Peterson to be fired by the UFC. No, he did good tonight. Herb Dean fucked up a couple of times, but this one was on Dan Miragliotta, who is more or less the best officiator in all of the UFC. Yes, including Big John McCarthy, who pisses me off on the regular anymore with late stoppages. He's as bad as Mario if he dies Yamasaki. But Miragliotta didn't see the tap, even though he was on that side. And poor Charles Oliveira took 5 extra ground and pound elbows, and Felder throws these like bombs. Just boom, 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 just death. Just death. And Oliveira's probably on his way to the hospital, or still in there, since I'm a day late with this review. To start the actual pay-per-view part, Tecia Torres versus Karate Hottie. I'm a big fan of the strawweight division, and I kind of like the Karate Hottie. This was kind of a boring fight, honestly. The Karate Hottie's an up-jumped atomweight and couldn't bully one of the stronger strawweights in the entire division, Tecia Tiny Tornado Torres. Tiny Tornado Torres just sort of clinched, laid in prayed the Karate Hottie and kind of just beat her up, swelled her face up, and poor Karate Hottie, she didn't take quite as bad a beating as she did at the hands of the new strawweight champion, Rose Namajunas, but she got kind of embarrassed. She might want to kind of go back to Invicta or somewhere else that's got an atomweight division, or she needs to put on weight. Now, she did put on some muscle for this fight. It was not enough. Tecia Torres is built like a pit bull, just ridiculous muscle on a tiny frame, and just beat the shit out of her. But the fight was kind of boring. It was just kind of a lay and pray bully fight. And besides the eye candy that these two beautiful women are to a misogynist like me, boring. Another contender for fight of the year, a definite contender for fight of the night, a ridiculous, bloody, bruising brawl between Eddie Alvarez and the most overhyped lightweight of all time, Justin Gaethje. I believe this was Justin Gaethje's second fight in the UFC, and he's a multiple title holder outside of the UFC, undefeated 18-0-1 in the upcoming to this fight, but he's another case of a guy who's really up-jumped. Has not proved himself in the UFC, but, has one really good debut against, I don't even know if the guy he debuted against was ranked, and they shove his ass in the top 10, in fact, ranked 6th, fighting Eddie Alvarez, ranked 4th, and coming off of a pretty tough loss to Conor McGregor. I forget if he, actually, I believe he's fought once or twice since then, but it was like, he had that, that no contest against Dustin Poirier, where he put on a pretty good show, but both these guys had a lot to prove. A supremely overhyped Justin Gaethje versus an Eddie Alvarez was backsliding in his career quite a bit, unfortunately. Now, both these guys hurt the shit out of each other, and Justin Gaethje's leg kicks are for real. He turned fucking Eddie Alvarez's lead leg into a purple Twizzler, fucked him up, bruised him badly. He turned Eddie Alvarez's face into weak, old, spoiled hamburger. Beat him up. However, Justin Gaethje got the worst of this fight. He got hit to the body so bad and just was not taking Eddie Alvarez's body shots seriously. He would come in as the aggressor and then cover up his head like this and just leave his ribs open to get pounded on. And though he landed a million supremely powerful leg kicks and he could hit them from almost any angle, including in the tie clinch, really, he couldn't do enough to even stagger Eddie Alvarez, unless you count the amount of times that Eddie Alvarez looked like he might not be able to stand from leg kicks. But by the third round, Justin Gaethje just was not prepared for the punching power of Eddie Alvarez and saw what a real top 5 fighter looks like. And man, Justin Gaethje was scared, and Eddie Alvarez was not. This man's been in a million 5-round wars, got the pleasure this time of training for a 3-round fight, and put 3 rounds on Justin Gaethje and beat the shit out of him to a TKO victory. Congratulations, Eddie Alvarez. Justin Gaethje, fuck you. Not because there's anything wrong with you as a person, but just because I hate when the UFC overhypes a fighter, especially in a division that is as stacked with fucking talent as the lightweight division. You are really good, Justin Gaethje. We will see more of you, and we will see better of you. You are not number 6. You're not number 10. You're number 14, maybe. Fuck off. Here at featherweight, our third to last fight of the night, Henry Cejudo versus Sergio Pettis. I'm a big Sergio Pettis fan, as I am of his brother, Anthony Pettis. Sergio Pettis is a phenomenal striker who's really, really, really good. But this is, you guys remember a few years ago how nobody could touch Cain Velasquez, good old sea-level Cain, and nobody could touch Junior Dos Santos. And nobody could fucking put a finger on Junior Dos Santos back in 2011, 2012, right? But Junior Dos Santos, besides one lucky knockout, he got the shit kicked out of by Cain Velasquez. So it was nobody could touch number 2, and number 1 was just unfucking touchable. Well, that's the flyweight division right now, all right? Nobody can fucking touch at all Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. And Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson embarrassed Henry Cejudo. And Henry Cejudo embarrasses everyone else who tries to touch him. He beat the fucking balls off of, is it Wilson Hayes? Hayes, who's a really badass flyweight. Well, he embarrassed Hayes and TKO'd Hayes. He did not finish Sergio Pettis. Sergio Pettis has really good jiu-jitsu defense from the bottom on the ground, but he Dan Severned Sergio Pettis. He wrestle-raped Sergio Pettis to a dominant decision. All 3 judges scored this fight 30-27. Those judges are all wrong. This fight was 30-26. That's how bad the second round was for Sergio Pettis, and honestly, that's how bad all 3 rounds were for Sergio Pettis. Goddamn, get fucked. Our co-main event of the evening, Alistair, formerly the Reem, now the Demolition Man Overeem. So Alistair, the Demolition Man Overeem, to face Francis Ngannou, a newcomer. Now the heavyweight division is thin and sort of a joke. All right. Curtis Blades was ranked when I got to see live Ngannou debut against Curtis Blades, who was only in his second fight. The heavyweight division is in a severe case of turnover with guys retiring, Mark Hunt suing, Dos Santos busted for PEDs, Velasquez injured for the entirety of the last 3 years. So besides an aging, what do you call him? An aging Verdum. A very dominant Stipe Miocic. There's nothing basically but new blood. Roy Nelson went to Bellator. Schaub retired. They're just scrambling to try to put together an actual heavyweight division. But there's one guy who's for real. That's Francis the Predator Ngannou. The dude from Cameroon. A gracious, nice guy. And a true freak of nature. This man beat... at the UFC, Performance Center, he hit their punching power testing machine and broke the former record for the highest punching power by 20,000 units. By 20,000 units. There is not a man in the world who hits harder than Francis Ngannou. Not a man in the world. This dude has the power. Now, Overeem has a lot of experience. This was his 60th professional MMA bout. The guy has a lot of experience as a K1 Grand Prix champion, level kickboxer. And Overeem did try to grapple and shit in this fight. The problem was Overeem does not have a great chin for the heavyweight division. And in the heavyweight division, you need a chin of steel. And he did try to grapple. He tried every crafty trick he could in the book. He looked calm and not at all threatened by Ngannou. The problem was he should have been. Ngannou got him flush once with this looping, kind of off-balance, weird, just from the hip, uppercut, hook, weird, just looping punch. And he formed the Cameroon space program. He sent Overeem into the fucking stratosphere. Oh my God. He lifted Overeem off his fucking feet with this punch. And between that, Overeem hitting the back of his head on the canvas, and then one good hammer fist, and he turned Overeem into a ream of fucking paper, like just fucking flat, with his toes curled, just like crimped. Oh, just I'm really surprised that they managed to arouse Overeem and he could walk around and give Ngannou a hug, because I thought Francis Ngannou fucking murdered Overeem. Stipe Miocic, you're on notice. There is no badder man on the planet than the Predator. He is coming, and he's going to take your fucking title, sir. Stipe Miocic hits really hard. He does not hit Ngannou hard. And then finally, your main event, the rematch. Holloway versus Aldo. Aldo is not old. He might be past his prime. He's struggled with a lot of injuries and whatnot, and is not doing a very good job of making featherweight. He carries quite a bit of muscle mass for featherweight, and it's starting to really catch up with him. And Holloway, Max Blessed Holloway, the incumbent champion, is just that good. Very technical, very fast, Nate Diaz-esque boxer with all the confidence in the world, mean mugging like Anderson Silva out there, taunting Aldo taking him with the utmost seriousness, and Aldo looked a little bit more confident and less rattled for this fight. Aldo, I believe, is somewhat mentally weak for being one of the best fighters of all time, and probably the best featherweight to ever live. But he was not in his best shape for this fight. I believe he was mentally more tough than he was against McGregor or the first time he fought Holloway. But it went much the same way as the first time he fought Holloway. This was my first time having the pleasure of seeing Aldo fight live, because I wasn't buying pay-per-views very often when he was in his prime. Aldo, in their first matchup, put the bricks to Holloway in the first couple of rounds. There was maybe 2 or 3 fractions of a second where Aldo may have stunned or hurt or put a good hit on Holloway, but otherwise this was a one-sided ass kicking. Aldo was just winging, trying to murder Holloway with haymakers, and Holloway was nowhere to be found for any of this shit. The kid has phenomenal footwork, way too fast, way too agile, way too smart and perceptive. And Aldo just couldn't land but maybe 1 or 2 good uppercuts on Holloway. And Holloway did not throw any particular haymakers Aldo's way for the first 2.5 rounds. And was just bopping him, just whap, 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 Nate Diaz style, giving him the old 50% in high volume. And just whap, 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 whap. He put a decent little cut, on the right side of Aldo's face with some jabs early, and with some elbows and hard hooks in round 3 when Aldo was starting to fade. He turned that into a huge gash that Aldo will have to remember blessed by. Really bloodied him up, and Aldo did not have the gas tank for the kind of pressure and constant advancing that Holloway did. There was barely 2 seconds of this fight where Aldo was coming forward. Besides a couple of vicious leg kicks, Joe Rogan was astute to mention that Aldo, in their first bout, Aldo's legs were hurt, and he didn't throw any leg kicks in their first bout. He threw a lot of leg kicks, and they obviously hurt in this fight, but they didn't hurt enough. And that was about all he could get. He took a couple head kicks, a lot of elbows, and a metric fuckload of jabs, and just quick little fast, long combinations. Holloway does have that kind of long, quick, relaxed, popping style, sort of like McGregor or Diaz, and is able to lay on the real power crosses when he wants to, and he did. And those kind of whack, the snapping rubber band hooks is what really busted Aldo up, and this fight ended the exact same way, with Aldo covered up, crumpled up, Holloway in the mount or in the back mount as Aldo was trying to twist and writhe around. And really, Aldo has a ton of heart. He didn't give up, and he did his best to get up, and he couldn't. He was too hurt. He was too tired, and Holloway never, ever ever stopped hitting him. Holloway is a wood chipper in the featherweight division. He is a turbine blade. Whap, 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 whap. Revolutions per minute. And he fucked Aldo up. And, man, I mean, I'm a huge Frankie Edgar fan, and Aldo has embarrassed Frankie Edgar twice. I wanted Cub Swanson to get the call up for this fight. Aldo got it instead. But Aldo is really far removed from his last finish. He has not finished an opponent since 2013. And besides a couple of wins against Frankie Edgar, McGregor beat his ass, and Holloway beat his ass twice. And I mean, Aldo's only 31, but he might have too many miles on him. But Holloway's 25. He's faster, stronger, has a better frame for the division. Very tall, even if he doesn't have a lot of reach, being, I think he's like 5'11" or something. Really tall for the featherweight division, adds a lot to his reach since he can, put weight on his lead leg and lean into his punches. And, dude, it was never in doubt that Holloway was going to finish him. Aldo only had a puncher's chance, just like Overeem only had a puncher's chance, just like Pettis only had a puncher's chance. Those last 3 fights, oh my God. But that knockout of the year for Ngannou, just putting Overeem into space like a giant out of fucking Skyrim, just poof. Cejudo wrestle fucking Pettis. Alvarez continuing to be a fighter, same as Cowboy Oliveira. Paul Felder just outlasting Charles Oliveira. Tisha Torres versus Karate Hottie. God knows why I had to pay money for that. Overall, that was all your list of fights. It was very, very good. Oh man, between me screaming like a girl in terror with Ngannou, just fucking on my fucking feet, yelling at the top of my lungs for Cowboy Oliveira and Yancy Medeiros, and for Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje. This was a phenomenal event. Buy it. Okay, you should have known that UFC 218 was going to be this good. It was this good. It was quite possibly, probably, certainly better than UFC 217, and that's why for the first time in my 10 years of being a UFC fan, I bought 2 pay-per-views in a row. For the first time, 3 pay-per-views in a year. These are $60 a piece. I don't regret it at all. God damn, what a show. Thanks for watching.